I was enjoying my morning coffee when I spotted Sarah's truck at our ranch gate, blocked by a beige Prius. A woman with a clipboard confronted my wife, waving papers and pointing at our property. The argument escalated quickly. Then she put her hands on Sarah and slammed her against our iron gate. I straightened my sheriff's uniform, placed my hat on my head, and walked outside. The woman didn't notice me until my shadow fell across her clipboard. She turned, annoyed, until she saw my badge gleaming in the sunlight. Her face went pale. The clipboard dropped to her side. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "we need to have a conversation about jurisdiction. And about putting hands on my wife. Before we start the story, please comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm Sheriff Buck Reynolds, born and raised here in Willow Creek County. My wife Sarah and I have called Dusty Dog Ranch our home for nearly 20 years now. We moved here after I finished my law enforcement training, looking for a peaceful place to raise our two kids, Jesse, who's now helping run the ranch, and Emma, who's away at college studying veterinary medicine. Our ranch sits about 15 miles outside of town, where the paved roads turn to gravel and the nearest stoplight is just a distant memory. We've got 40 acres, a small herd of cattle, 3 horses, and one very stubborn goat named Crumbles who thinks she runs the place. It's quiet out here, just the way we like it. That Tuesday morning, I watched the whole thing unfold through our kitchen window. Sarah had gone into town for groceries and some feed store supplies, a weekly routine for us. When she pulled up to our gate, this beige Prius was already parked there, blocking the entrance. She came out of nowhere, Sarah told me later. Marched right up to my window and introduced herself as Karen Fisher, president of the Home Order Authority. Had some kind of plastic badge pinned to her blouse and everything. According to Sarah, this Karen immediately started listing off violations. Our ranch sign was non-compliant with aesthetic guidelines. Our fence posts were improperly spaced. And apparently, Crumbles the goat was visible from the main road, violating livestock display regulations. I tried to explain to her that we don't have an HOA out here, Sarah said, still shaking her head in disbelief. I've lived in this county my whole life. There's no such thing as a home order authority in these parts. But Karen wasn't listening. She pulled out a folder of papers, official-looking documents with what appeared to be a county seal. Later, we discover it was just a downloaded image that she'd printed and glued onto her homemade forms. At the time, though, she waved them around like they gave her all the authority in the world. "Your property has accumulated 7 violations in the past month," she told Sarah. "That's $350 in fines, due immediately." When Sarah laughed and tried to drive forward to open our gate, that's when it happened. Karen physically stepped in front of the truck, forcing Sarah to stop. When my wife got out to manually open the gate, Karen blocked her path. "You can't enter until we resolve these violations," she insisted. Sarah, never one to back down, tried to walk around her. That's when Karen grabbed her shoulders and shoved her against our iron gate. "You don't understand," Karen hissed. "I have the authority to place liens on non-compliant properties." That's the moment I decided to step outside. Nobody puts hands on my wife, especially not on our own property. I stepped through our front door and walked across the yard. Karen was so busy waving her clipboard at Sarah that she didn't even notice me coming. Our old farm dog Rusty trotted alongside me, probably hoping this visit meant treats. "Is there a problem here?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. Karen spun around, startled. For a split second, she looked annoyed at the interruption. Then her eyes traveled from my face down to my uniform, lingering on the sheriff's badge pinned to my chest. Her expression changed faster than a traffic light, from angry red to cautious yellow to pale white. "Sheriff Reynolds," I said, introducing myself while tipping my hat slightly. "I couldn't help but notice you putting hands on my wife just now." Karen took a small step backward. I was just explaining the HOA regulations to this resident." "This resident is my wife," I said. "And there is no HOA in this county." I glanced down at her makeshift badge. Up close, it was even more obviously fake, a plastic name tag with Home Order Authority printed in bold letters and laminated with what looked like packing tape. "Mind if I see those official papers?" I asked, holding out my hand. Karen clutched her clipboard tighter. These are confidential HOA documents. Ma'am, I'm the sheriff of this county. There is no home order authority here. Now, you can hand me those papers voluntarily, or we can discuss this downtown at my office. Her fingers trembled as she handed over the clipboard. The papers had an official-looking seal at the top, but even at a glance, I could tell it was forged. The county seal had been copied and pasted onto a document template, probably downloaded from the internet. You realize impersonating a government official is a crime, right? I said, flipping through the pages of fake violations and made-up fines. I'm not impersonating anyone, Karen insisted, though her voice had lost its confidence. I'm the president of a homeowners association. Sarah, who had been watching this exchange with arms crossed, finally spoke up. An association that doesn't exist, for homes that aren't in any development, in a county where the nearest subdivision is 20 miles away. People have a right to community standards, Karen said, lifting her chin. Someone has to protect property values. I handed the clipboard back to her. What people have is a right not to be scammed or assaulted on their own property. Now, you have two options here. You can get in your car and drive away, and we can pretend this never happened. Or I can place you under arrest for assault and attempted fraud. Karen's eyes darted between me, Sarah, and her Prius. For a moment, I thought she might argue more. Instead, she straightened her visor and said, "This isn't over. I'll be filing a complaint with the county commissioner." "You do that," I said. "Drive safe now." As she backed her Prius down our driveway, Sarah turned to me with a look that mixed gratitude with confusion. "What in the world was that about?" she asked. I shook my head. "I don't know, but something tells me we haven't seen the last of her." I had no idea then just how right I would be. I was right about not seeing the last of Karen. The very next morning, my office phone started ringing off the hook. "Sheriff? This is Tom Wilson over on Old Mill Road. Got some lady out here telling me I need a permit for my chicken coop." "Buck?" "Martha Jenkins. There's someone trying to find me for my garden gnomes." "Is that even legal?" By noon, I had a list of 12 similar complaints from all over the county. This wasn't just about our ranch anymore. Karen had been busy. I called my deputy, Jim Larson, into my office. "Jim, I need you to gather up all these reports. Looks like we've got someone running around pretending to be some kind of authority, issuing fake fines." Jim nodded as I filled him in on yesterday's encounter. "Should we bring her in?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "First, we need to understand how deep this goes." That afternoon, I drove out to visit neighbors who'd reported run-ins with our fake HOA president. The stories all followed the same pattern. Karen would show up in her beige Prius, clipboard in hand, citing violations of rules that didn't exist. The Hendersons had paid her $75 for having an unapproved mailbox. The Garcias gave her $150 for excessive wind chime usage. Old Man Peterson had written a check for $200 to avoid a livestock proximity surcharge for his 3 goats. All told, Karen had collected nearly $3,000 from frightened or confused residents. Each payment was made out to something called the Home Order Authority Compliance Fund. When I got back to the ranch that evening, Sarah was waiting with more news. "Our niece Riley is visiting," she said. "And you won't believe what she found online." Riley, our tech-savvy niece who was home from college, had discovered a website, homeownerauthority.com. It had pages of fake bylaws, printable violation forms, and even a payment portal. "She's built a whole fake organization," Riley explained, showing me the site on her laptop. "Look, she's even got drop-down menus for different types of violations." I scroll through the list. Improper mailbox height, unauthorized garden ornaments, non-compliant fence paint, livestock visual impact fees. "The best part," Riley said, clicking to another page, "is this." She pulled up a photo of Karen, wearing what looked like a navy blazer, standing in front of what appeared to be a government building. The caption read, "Karen Fisher, founding president of the Home Order Authority, advocating for rural property standards." "That's the county courthouse," I said, looking closer. but I don't remember any HOA meetings there. Because there weren't any, Riley said with a grin. Look closer at the edges of the photo. Sure enough, zooming in revealed the telltale signs of photo editing software. Karen had superimposed herself into the picture. She's created this whole false identity, I said, shaking my head. This goes beyond annoying neighbors. This is fraud. The next day, I called the district attorney's office. After explaining the situation, they assigned a prosecutor to work with us. We needed solid evidence of Karen accepting money under false pretenses, and we needed it documented properly. We need to catch her in the act, I told Sarah and Riley that night at dinner. Someone she doesn't recognize yet, someone who can get her to reveal exactly what she's doing. That's when our son Jesse spoke up. What about me? I've been away at college. She probably doesn't know I'm your son. An idea started to form. We owned a small piece of property on the edge of our land, an old trailer that Jesse sometimes used as a workshop. With a few adjustments, it could look like someone new had moved in. You think you can play the part of an unsuspecting new resident? I asked him. Jesse grinned. Just watch me, Dad. We spent the weekend setting up our trap. Riley installed hidden cameras in the trailer and around the property. Jesse moved in some furniture and put up a fake for sale sign with sold plastered across it. We even created a social media post about Kyle McThistle moving to town. Then we waited. We didn't have to wait long. Karen Fisher took the bait hook, line, and sinker. Karen showed up at Jesse's trailer exactly 3 days after we set our trap. From my hidden position in the shed nearby, I watched her beige Prius kick up dust as it rolled to a stop. Through my binoculars, I could see her checking her appearance in the rearview mirror before climbing out, clipboard in hand. Jesse was ready. Sitting in a lawn chair outside the trailer, wearing clothes that didn't quite match and strumming an old guitar badly, he looked every bit the clueless new resident. Riley had positioned 3 cameras around the property, one disguised in a birdhouse, another hidden in a flower pot, and a third mounted under the trailer's awning. You getting this? I whispered into my radio. Crystal clear, Riley's voice came back. She was parked down the road in her car, monitoring the video feeds on her laptop. Karen approached Jesse with a wide smile that didn't reach her eyes. Good morning. You must be new to the area. I'm Karen Fisher, president of the Home Order Authority. Jesse stood up, playing his part perfectly. Hey there. Name's Kyle McThistle. Just moved in from Nevada. Love what you folks got going on here, all this space. Yes, well, space comes with responsibility, Karen said, her voice taking on that official tone I'd heard before. I'm here to welcome you to the community and inform you about our local property standards. She handed Jesse a packet of papers, the same fake bylaws and violation forms she'd shown others. As a new resident, you'll need to register with the HOA and pay the new resident compliance fee, she explained. It's $200 for basic registration, but I recommend our gold package at $350, which includes priority response to any violations. Violations? Jesse scratched his head, looking confused. What kind of violations are we talking about? Karen was all too happy to explain, pointing out imaginary issues around the trailer. Your lawn chair placement is non-compliant. Outdoor furniture must be at least 6 feet from the property line. That wind chime exceeds our sound ordinance. And is that a garden gnome? Those require aesthetic approval. For the next 20 minutes, Jesse played along, asking questions that allowed Karen to dig herself deeper. She explained the fee structure, the violation point system, and the aesthetic compliance committee, all completely fabricated. So what happens if I don't join this HOA thing? Jesse finally asked. That's when she revealed her true colors. Well, Karen said, lowering her voice, I can't force anyone to join. But those who don't comply tend to experience difficulties. Mail delivery problems. Anonymous complaints to county inspectors. Sometimes even issues with utilities. From my hiding spot, I felt my jaw tighten. She was openly threatening him. That sounds like a threat, ma'am, Jesse said, exactly as we'd rehearsed. Karen's smile turned cold. It's not a threat. It's just how things work out here. Those who don't support community standards often find the community doesn't support them. She handed Jesse a form titled First Notice of Violation with a $75 fine listed for unapproved exterior decorations. Consider this a courtesy warning, she said. Payment is due within 7 days. Cash or check made out to the Home Order Authority. And if I don't pay? Jesse asked. Then the fine doubles, and I'll have to place a property lien, she said, tapping her clipboard. I recommend compliance. It's easier for everyone. After Karen drove away, Jesse gave me the all-clear signal. I emerged from the shed, grinning. We got her, I said, as Riley pulled up in her car, laptop open to the recorded footage. Every word, Riley confirmed. Even got a clear shot of the fake violation form and her explaining the non-existent lien process. I pulled out my phone and called the district attorney's office. We have everything we need. The prosecutor agreed. We had documented evidence of fraud, intimidation, and impersonating an official entity. It was time to bring Karen Fisher in. But as I would soon learn, Karen wasn't going down without a fight. I expected Karen to be angry when we called her in for questioning. What I didn't expect was the full-scale community battle she tried to ignite. 2 days after our interview with her at the station, where she insisted her Home Order Authority was a legitimate community organization despite all evidence to the contrary, strange flyers started appearing all over town. Corrupt sheriff targets community advocate, the headline screamed in bold red letters. Below was a badly photoshopped picture of me looking sinister, next to a saintly image of Karen surrounded by flowers. This is getting ridiculous, I said to Deputy Jim as we pulled one off the community board at Miller's General Store. People aren't buying it, Buck, Jim assured me. Everyone knows you. But Karen wasn't relying on just flyers. She'd taken to social media, creating a Save Our Standards group where she painted herself as a martyr being persecuted for trying to maintain community values. She claimed I was targeting her because the Dusty Dog Ranch had multiple violations and I was abusing my power to avoid compliance. Most folks in the county found it laughable. But a small group, mostly newcomers who didn't know better, were actually rallying behind her. When I got back to the ranch that evening, Sarah met me at the door with a strange envelope. This came today, she said. Certified mail. Inside was a letter on official-looking letterhead from Bergman, White & Associates, attorneys at law. It demanded I cease and desist all harassment of Karen Fisher and drop all fraudulent investigations immediately. I called the number on the letterhead. A confused receptionist at a dental office in Nevada answered. She faked a lawyer's letter, I told Sarah, shaking my head. She's escalating. The next morning, Riley showed us Karen's latest online update. She was organizing a protest, a citizen's inspection of our ranch. The post claimed our property was endangering community standards and invited people to peacefully gather at our gate the following Saturday. She's bringing protesters to our home? Sarah was incredulous. Is she insane? No, I said, studying the post. She's desperate. This is her trying to save face and intimidate us into backing down. I called the DA's office again. They were already building their case, but this new development concerned them. We don't want a confrontation at your property, Sheriff, the DA said. Can you be away that day? No, I replied firmly. This is my home. I'll handle it properly, but I'm not running from this woman. The morning of the protest, we were ready. I had 2 deputies parked discreetly down the road. Riley had cameras set up around the property. Jesse and Sarah stayed inside, though I could see them watching nervously through the windows. At precisely 10 a.m., a line of 5 cars pulled up to our gate. Karen's beige Prius led the small caravan. About 15 people got out, some holding signs with slogans like Standards Matter and No Special Treatment. Karen approached the gate with a bullhorn. I waited on the porch, in full uniform, Rusty sitting calmly by my side. This property has been cited for multiple violations, she announced through the bullhorn, her voice echoing across our quiet pasture. We are here to document ongoing non-compliance. I walked slowly down to the gate. The protesters watched me approach, some looking uncomfortable now that they were face to face with the actual sheriff. A few even drifted back toward their cars. "Good morning," I said calmly when I reached the gate. "You're all trespassing on private property." "We have a right to document violations," Karen insisted, though she'd lowered the bullhorn. "No, ma'am, you don't," I replied. "What you're doing right now is criminal trespass. You're also engaging in harassment and intimidation." I turned to address the small crowd. "Folks, I understand you think you're standing up for community standards. But Ms. Fisher has misled you. There is no home order authority. She has been collecting money under false pretenses. We have documented evidence of fraud." A murmur went through the group. One man raised his hand. "Is it true you're only targeting her because this is your property?" "No, sir," I replied. "We've documented instances across the county. Ms. Fisher has collected thousands of dollars through intimidation and fake fines. The district attorney is filing charges." Karen tried to regain control. "He's lying. They're all conspiring against me." But I could see the doubt spreading through her supporters. One by one, they began returning to their cars. Within 10 minutes, only Karen remained, clutching her clipboard like a shield. "This isn't over, Sheriff," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "You can't silence me." "This isn't about silencing anyone, Ms. Fisher," I replied. "It's about stopping fraud. Now please leave my property before I have to arrest you for trespassing." As she got into her Prius, I noticed a black sedan pulling up behind the remaining cars. A man in a suit stepped out, holding a leather briefcase. "Sheriff Reynolds," he called out. "Mark Wilson, State Attorney's Office. Glad I caught you both here. Miss Fisher, I have some papers for you." Karen's face went pale as the state attorney approached with a thick envelope of legal documents. The real consequences were finally arriving. The morning of Karen Fisher's court date dawned bright and clear. The county courthouse, the real one, not the photoshopped version from her website, was unusually busy. Word had spread about the fake HOA lady, and it seemed half the county wanted to see how it would play out. I sat in the front row in my official uniform, Sarah beside me. Riley and Jesse sat behind us, along with several neighbors who'd been victims of Karen's scheme. The district attorney, Elaine Michaels, had prepared a solid case, with evidence from 15 different households plus our sting operation. When Karen entered with her attorney, a real one this time, not a made-up letterhead, she looked nothing like the confident woman who'd been bullying our neighbors. Her hair was pulled back simply, her clothes modest and subdued. Gone was the clipboard and the self-important strut. "All rise for the Honorable Judge William Harding," the bailiff announced. The charges were read aloud: multiple counts of fraud, impersonating an official, extortion, and 1 count of assault for shoving Sarah against our gate. Karen pleaded not guilty to all charges, despite the mountain of evidence. The trial wasn't long, but it was thorough. One by one, neighbors testified about the fake fines they'd paid. The DA showed screenshots of the fabricated website, bank records showing deposits to Karen's personal account, and our video of her explicitly threatening consequences for non-compliance. When it was my turn to testify, I kept it professional and factual, describing the incident at our gate and the subsequent investigation. "Sheriff Reynolds," Karen's attorney asked during cross-examination, "isn't it true that you used county resources to investigate Ms. Fisher because of a personal grudge after an altercation at your home?" "No, sir," I replied calmly. The investigation began after multiple citizens reported being defrauded. The incident at my ranch was simply one of many complaints. When Karen took the stand, her defense became clear: she truly believed she was helping the community. "I moved here from Phoenix 3 years ago," she explained, her voice trembling slightly. "In my previous neighborhood, we had standards. Rules. Here, I saw properties declining, livestock wandering freely, people doing whatever they wanted. Someone needed to establish order." "So you created a fake homeowners association?" the DA asked. "It wasn't fake," Karen insisted. "It was aspirational. I was trying to build something that would benefit everyone. By threatening people? By collecting money under false pretenses, the DA pressed. The money was for community improvements, Karen claimed, though when asked for records of how it was spent, she had nothing to show. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. We, the jury, find the defendant, Karen Fisher, guilty on all counts. Judge Harding wasn't known for leniency when it came to fraud cases. He peered down at Karen over his reading glasses. "Ms. Fisher, you have abused people's trust and respect for authority. You preyed upon their desire to be good neighbors and their fear of official consequences. This court sentences you to 18 months in state prison, with all but 3 months suspended, followed by 2 years of probation." He wasn't finished. "You will pay restitution to all victims, totaling $4,275, plus a fine of $2,000. During your probation, you are prohibited from creating, joining, or participating in any community organization without prior court approval." The gavel came down with a finality that echoed through the courtroom. As Karen was led away, she looked back once. Not at me, but at the community members sitting in the gallery, the very people she'd claimed to be helping. Outside the courthouse, reporters from the local paper wanted statements. I kept mine brief. Justice was served today. In Willow Creek County, we look out for our neighbors the old-fashioned way, by actually being good neighbors, not by appointing ourselves as authorities. Sarah squeezed my hand as we walked to our truck. "Think this is really over?" she asked. I nodded slowly. I think Karen finally learned a lesson about real authority versus pretend power. As we drove back to Dusty Dog Ranch, I couldn't help but reflect on how something as simple as a clipboard and a confident attitude had nearly allowed one person to terrorize an entire community. It was a powerful reminder that actual authority comes with responsibility, oversight, and accountability, lessons Karen Fisher would have plenty of time to consider during her 3 months behind bars. It's been 6 months since Karen Fisher served her time and left our county. Rumor has it she moved to a planned community in Arizona, one with a real HOA where she can follow actual rules instead of making them up. Life at Dusty Dog Ranch returned to its peaceful rhythm. Sarah's garden flourished through the summer. Jesse decided to stay and help run the ranch instead of returning to college, discovering he preferred wide-open spaces to classrooms. Riley graduated with her computer science degree and occasionally visits, always checking our security cameras just in case. One sunny Saturday, we hosted a community barbecue. Folks from all over the county came by, many of them former victims of Karen's scheme, now neighbors and friends brought together by the strange ordeal we'd shared. Tom Wilson brought his famous apple pie. The Hendersons arrived with their kids and a new puppy. Old Man Peterson even brought his 3 goats, which promptly tried to eat Sarah's prize roses until we redirected them to a weedy patch that needed clearing. As I flipped burgers on the grill, Deputy Jim approached with a cold soda. "You hear about that website?" he asked. "What website?" I turned the burgers, half listening. "Someone made KarenWatch.com. It's for reporting fake authorities and scammers trying to pull the same stunt in other counties. Got a whole section about your case." I chuckled. "Riley's work?" "Yep. She says 3 other sheriffs have already contacted her about similar cases." I shook my head, amazed that Karen wasn't an isolated incident. People will always try to grab power any way they can, I guess. Later, as the sun began to set and neighbors lounged in lawn chairs swapping stories, Sarah and I walked to our front gate. The old "Welcome to Dusty Dog Ranch" sign had been replaced with a new one, hand-carved by Jesse. Underneath the name, in smaller letters, it read, "No HOA. Just good neighbors." Crumbles the goat trotted up beside us, chewing thoughtfully on nothing as usual. "You know what's funny?" Sarah said, leaning against the gate where this whole saga began. If Karen had just introduced herself normally, offered to start a real community group, maybe organized some events, people probably would have supported her. I nodded. Real authority is given, not taken. As I looked out over our property, the fields golden in the setting sun, neighbors laughing on our porch, the distant mountains standing guard on the horizon, I felt grateful. Not just for our little piece of land, but for a community that could come together when it mattered. In my 25 years wearing this badge, I told Sarah, putting my arm around her shoulders, I've learned that the strongest communities don't need clipboards and fake rules. They just need people who care enough to be good neighbors. She smiled, reaching up to kiss my cheek. And the occasional sheriff to step in when someone forgets that. Crumbles bleated in what seemed like agreement, then wandered off to find something else not to eat. That evening, as our guests departed with waves and promises to get together again soon, I realized something important. Karen had tried to create a community through fear and fake authority. She failed. But in her failure, she'd inadvertently strengthened the real bonds between neighbors who now appreciated each other more than ever. Sometimes, I thought as I locked our gate for the night, you find the true meaning of community in the strangest of ways, even when it starts with a confrontation at your front gate and a woman with a clipboard who picked the wrong sheriff's wife to mess with.